Day so far on our 50th Emerging Growth Conference. Next up, we have Cloud DX Inc. It trades on the OTCQB under the symbol CDXFF and on the TSXV under the symbol CDS, and is on a mission to make healthcare better for everyone. Healthcare clinics and hospitals across North America use the health data platform Connected Health to add remote and virtual technology to care delivery. Their remote monitoring solutions lets care teams virtually and efficiently monitor hundreds of patients from the comfort of their homes. Please welcome its CEO, Robert Kaul. Welcome back, Robert. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Anna. Great to be here. Good morning, everybody.
All right, take it away. Call me back when you're ready for questions. I'll be here.
I sure will. And again, thanks everyone for joining us today. As usual with these presentations, there will be forward-looking statements. So this slide is in our investor presentation. You can take a look at it if you want to. For those of you who don't know us yet, Cloud DX is one of the leading companies in North America providing remote patient monitoring, which is a new form of healthcare that really came into its own during the pandemic and the aftermath, which we're currently living through. As a component of virtual care, which is a very rapidly growing mode of delivering healthcare across North America. And so really, we're going to talk today about Cloud DX's recent performance. We're going to talk about our partnerships, give you some real clear ideas about what differentiates Cloud DX from our competition and where the company's going in the next little while. And right off the bat, the most important thing to know about Cloud DX is that we are in fact partners with some of the most powerful and exciting healthcare companies in the world. During 2022, Cloud DX both announced and deployed contracts through Medtronic Canada, which is a division of the largest healthcare company in the world, Medtronic. And in addition to that, we also announced a partnership with Medtronic, a project rather, to integrate a new Medtronic medical device into the Cloud DX technology platform. So we're closely aligned partners with Medtronic, and eventually those integrated products are slated to be distributed by both Cloud DX and Medtronic actually all over the world in over 170 countries. But we're also partners with Teladoc Health, which is the largest telemedicine company in the world and one of the pioneers of the whole concept of telemedicine. Teladoc Health has been in business for over 20 years, has over 5,000 employees, and also does business in over 170 countries around the world. Cloud DX is a close partner of Teladoc Health, and we'll talk more about that partnership and how that integrated technology is making a difference out there. We're growing extremely quickly as a Canadian vendor of remote patient monitoring. During 2022, as you'll hear, we signed more contracts than we ever had before. We're now, I think, if not the largest, one of the largest vendors of remote monitoring in the entire country. And the third thing we're going to talk about and what's different and unique about Cloud DX is that we actually innovate new technologies. Many of our competitors take off-the-shelf technologies and just deploy them in the field. Cloud DX is moving the entire field forward, and the evidence of that is not only our approvals and our new technology pipeline, but as you're going to hear, published peer-reviewed research that is being cited not only academically, but also by many large companies in our space. So let's talk a little bit about 2022. I mentioned that we had actually our best year ever. We signed 28 contracts or contract extensions in 2022, which is a 233% increase over our performance in 2021. That's the kind of trajectory really that the entire industry is seeing right now, but we're right there at the leading forefront of that growth. Our last reported revenue was at September 30th, and the year-end revenues are still to come, still to be announced, but at that September 30th financial statement, our revenues had increased year over year at that time by just under 300%. Our net loss is coming down. We're on a path towards cash flow positive, and the growth of our partnerships as well as the growth of our Canadian contracts, of course, a huge part of that. At Cloud DX, an important thing to note is that our revenue numbers, our trailing revenue numbers, are indicated by financial statements. If you want to get a picture from sort of what's coming, the best number to look at is our contract signed. Revenue at Cloud DX usually follows contract signed by about a quarter to 2 quarters, because it takes a little time to onboard a hospital or healthcare provider and then enroll the patients in that remote patient monitoring, thereby generating that recurring revenue. Cloud DX also receives a lot of non-dilutive government funding and grant support. And in 2022, we signed forward-looking contracts for just under $1 million Canadian in non-dilutive cash that's due to come through in 2023. And so this is an example of some of the types of projects and types of contracts we're doing. I mentioned our partnership with Medtronic to integrate a new device. Medtronic calls it the Oxypod. It's a continuous monitor for pulse oxygen. And the project is outlined here. This was press released in November of last year. And it's a fully funded project with Medtronic and the Digital Supercluster providing the integration budget to fund the integration of the technologies. So that means just during that phase, CloudDX is slated to receive just under $600,000 Canadian in non-dilutive cash, following which sales will begin of that integrated product through Medtronic as well as Canada. So this is a combination of many things. It shows you that CloudDX is part of a large network of very powerful companies. As a co-leader of this type of project, we receive very valuable non-dilutive cash, but we also are positioned to take this technology into the market in 2024 and beyond. For those who are not familiar, CloudDX technology really consists of 3 different components. I'm going to take you through them one by one just to show you what it is exactly I'm talking about and why it's so valuable out in the world. We call this a virtual care as a service because it has a strong recurring revenue component. The 3 parts of our system include a kit of devices called the Connected Health Kit that's used by patients to monitor their health at home. This kit consists almost always of a tablet computer, might be the tablet you already have, or we include a tablet computer in the kit, and then approved Health Canada licensed FDA cleared medical devices to monitor vital signs and to take readings and so on. The software on the tablet is monitoring the patient and is capable of not only that, but also measuring compliance to instructions, conducting two-way telehealth visits, text messaging, and a lot of communication feedback loops that change behavior and improve outcomes. Clinicians monitor patients on a web-based clinical portal. That software is state-of-the-art and includes all the features you would imagine that allow automation in the space so that patients who are on track monitoring their readings do not need the attention of a nurse or a doctor. It's that efficiency of automated remote monitoring, sometimes called RAM, remote automated monitoring, that improves the efficiency of care overall and drives a very, very strong ROI for both the provider and the payer. The final part of our solution is integration services. This can consist of anything from adding new devices to the platform, customizing software features, or right up to doing direct customer interventions, whether or not the customer is compliant with their instructions, a key differentiator for CloudDX across the board. So we know for sure that our patients love our Connected Health Kit because we've published studies and surveys showing up to 100% ease of use and 95% patient satisfaction. That's critical because that patient satisfaction and ease of use drives the compliance that's required for US reimbursement. CloudDX technology is backed by a strong IP portfolio, includes 8 granted patent families, and those patents are both US patents and international patents. We have many patents pending. This list number is out of date now a little bit. And so we're continually filing new patents on the research and on the new technologies that we develop. So just to distill all this down, the bottom line, the value proposition for remote monitoring especially, but all of virtual care is, first of all, patients get better faster. There's better outcomes. Patients really like not having to drag themselves down to the clinic or to the hospital. It's more convenient. But providers also benefit. Doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals can be more efficient, care for more patients, and do that more easily using this technology than prior to the introduction of virtual care. Payers, the ones who actually pay the bills, are seeing very high ROIs because chronic disease patients exacerbate less often, less hospitalizations, earlier discharge, and shorter length of stay. And these outcomes have been documented in published peer-reviewed studies. When the pandemic started in 2019, CloudDX was focused on chronic illness. But today we take care of 12 different use cases across the hospital and care continuum, right up to and including palliative care, mental health care, And in fact, today we just announced a new deployment in the world of type 2 diabetes. So we're finding more and more reasons to deploy Cloud DX, and this is giving us a larger and larger footprint across our hospital clientele all throughout North America. The available market for patients is frankly enormous. 1 out of 3 adults in North America has one or more chronic illnesses. Over 2.5 million procedures, surgeries were postponed or canceled during the pandemic, and that backlog persists to this day. And complications after surgery kill more than 1.5 million people every year. One study, this is a study from a company in the United States, showed and predicted that 70 million American adults would be on some kind of remote monitoring platform or program by 2025. That kind of rapid growth is really what we're seeing now in the marketplace today. So these numbers have tracked since this study was released in 2020. In Canada, Cloud DX goes to market in 3 important ways. We are standard of care in many provinces for post-surgical monitoring and chronic disease, and we partner with some of the largest and most sophisticated hospital systems in the country. Our Medtronic partnership directly addresses the hospital market as well. So that partnership drives new hospital contracts. We're also direct government vendors to some of the largest healthcare systems in the world. In fact, one of our partners in Western Canada is the 3rd largest healthcare platform or healthcare system rather in North America. So we're direct vendors to more than one province across the country, and additional provincial RFPs are now pending. And then we've already talked about our partnership programs. That leads to not only integration, but also co-marketing, co-sales, and distribution across the world, in fact. On the US side, we're focusing tremendously in 2023 on US growth. Our sales and marketing in Canada is primarily done by referral. We're investing dollars raised during this next private placement on US marketing and US sales, both to primary care clinics who are reimbursed for providing remote monitoring to their patients, and that reimbursement code pays Cloud DX directly, and also to hospital systems that are embracing the concept of hospital at home across North America. And that was in fact driven by the pandemic, but is now driving huge ROIs for hospitals, and in fact has become a permanent fixture with a new extension of a Medicare program that pays US hospitals the same reimbursements to care for patients at home as they would normally get in the hospital, although with a much lower overhead. Access to patients has improved with these enormous contracts, and this just shows that, as you can see, we now have access to millions of patients, and growing into that space is now the mission. Cloud DX has received many awards for excellence over the years in innovation and in developing new technologies. And it's nice to know that we're recognized for our efforts, but the important part, the point of this slide is that in addition to a nice trophy, many of these awards come with non-dilutive cash, the largest of which was the post-prize program at the Qualcomm Tricorder X Prize, which has funded Cloud DX several $1 million in non-dilutive funding for validation of new technologies, including our cough analysis technology. I'll tell you about it in just a moment. So this is a non-dilutive funding source as well as a source of kudos and accolades. Cloud DX is tightly held. We only have 72 million shares outstanding, and insiders and board members own over 34%, according to this slide, of the company. That percentage actually is growing. If you'll notice in our filings, insider buying has been robust since mid-2022. So coming back to what's special and different about Cloud DX and why we're the chosen partner of some of the largest technology companies in the world, we are genuine innovators. We genuinely are developing new ways to deliver care that are superior to the status quo. We also offer compliance services that exceed any of our competition. We take care of compliance to the care plan for our patients. It's that simple. That takes that burden off of our clients and removes one of those things that keeps the client from the provider rather from being able to deliver care, which is just focusing on technical issues and compliance. That's driving a lot of new business for us right now. We've mentioned our 2 biggest partners, Teladoc and Medtronic, but we're also partners with other market leaders across North America, including CBI Health, which is one of the largest home care delivery services in Canada, Medio, which is the largest logistics provider for telehealth deployments across North America, and even a unique program with Equitable Life for the first time in Canada, offering connected health services to their entire list of critical illness insurance members. Partnerships is a huge part of how we grow at Cloud DX. So to answer the question, why would you invest? Obviously, we are meeting real needs. I mentioned 1 in 3 adults has a chronic disease. A lot of folks don't know that 1 in 6 adults has a neurological disease across North America, which is another vertical we treat. And over 29% in a published peer-reviewed study of post-surgical patients were found to have a medication error that we detected. We're a verified vendor for all the provinces across Canada. We are FDA cleared and registered, audited for quality and security and privacy. And we already mentioned at the top of this meeting, our growth is in the triple digits and is accelerating. I do want to take you very quickly before I jump to questions through 2 important points. We welcomed an important new board member at the very end of 2022. The gentleman's name is Neil Fraser, and he's the former president of Medtronic Canada. Neil was president at Medtronic when our partnership was formed, and then he retired. And we're very proud that almost his first act after retiring was joining our board of directors to help guide our global growth as someone with tremendous experience in growing a very profitable medical technology company. We also have genuine physicians on our board. These are doctors who use our services and are using our systems in their day-to-day world and also bring an enormous amount of credibility to our board. And so the last point I want to make is just to give everyone a quick look at what's coming in our innovation pipeline. Cloud DX has new technologies coming to market for the measurement of blood pressure and other vital signs like respiration rate. We have a new multifunction continuous vital sign monitor that actually has a large potential deployments across both monitoring in hospital and that hospital at home solution that we mentioned. And the third technology I want you all to know about is something called AccuScreen Cough Analysis. This is a smartphone app we've developed as part of our XPRIZE win that is capable of detecting and recognizing respiratory diseases based on the sound of a person coughing. It simply runs on a cell phone. It's capable of diagnosing several different respiratory diseases, but it has been validated first for tuberculosis, which as of now is, again, the most fatal respiratory disease in the world. Now, why investors should care about these new technologies is because A, they give us a competitive advantage with our existing clientele and allow us to sign new contracts and grow with our large partners. But B, they're already included in our growth plans. From the point of view of our Spot Monitor PulseWave 2, it's already part of our agreement with Teladoc Health. Our Vitality unit for continuous remote patient monitoring has already been chosen even before it's actually approved by regulators. It's been chosen for a 20,000 patient clinical study, which we're able to do prior to approval, but that's already generating revenue for the company in 2023. And the last point we'll make is that cough analysis technology like ours was recently acquired from an Australian company by Pfizer for over $120 million. Now, if you investigate that transaction, if you just look it up, you'll see that that technology was at roughly the same level of deployment and readiness as our technology, which means that our IP around these new products is an important part of our overall value story at Cloud DX. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much. And Anna, I'm ready to take some questions.
Great job. Thank you for this, Robert. Okay, we have a question from Gary Zwetchkenbaum, CEO of Plum Tree Consulting. So your partnerships with Teladoc and Medtronic seem to be very important to your growth. So do you see Cloud DX signing any new large partnerships in 2023?
I think I can say, without giving too much selective disclosure, that in fact, partnerships are a very key part of our overall strategy. And so as we move forward, what we've seen already is that by partnering with companies that either bring a new part of the value proposition to the table or that have that distribution is synergistic for both parties. So overall, I would say to Gary, yes, the answer is Cloud DX is very focused on delivering both organically and also through existing and new partnerships.
Wonderful. So Michaela Carroll says, congratulations on the 2022 contracts. And do you have any guidance for 2023?
So again, we're not at the point yet where we're going to give the market financial guidance, partly because things are changing really fast. But I will say that pay attention to the contract signed metric, because as we announce new contracts signed almost on a weekly basis at this point in this quarter, it becomes easier and easier to take a look at what might be coming down the road, even without specific dollar amount guidance. We're large enough now, and we're signing contracts fast enough now that we can start to point to a sort of average contract value. Our contracts do vary. We have very large contracts with enormous organizations and smaller contracts with, individual doctors' offices. However, in the number of patients each one of those contracts serve, they're not that different, because the number of patients who need remote monitoring to really impact their outcomes are well known. They're folks who have long-term chronic illnesses, or they're part of a post-surgical program where it's pretty easy to identify who needs our services. So that contract sign number is the most important number. And I believe today we've also announced, I think, our 6th or 7th contract. I think it was the 7th contract already in 2023.
Fantastic. So Jaden Kent asks, how many physicians, if any, do you have referring or selling your platform? And if none, how are you primarily selling it?
Well, that's a great question. So across Canada, our technology really is sold through relationships and referrals. So these are doctors saying to other doctors, if you're going to do remote monitoring, you got to choose Cloud DX. That, in fact, is how our partnership with Medtronic came about. Medtronic actually went to hospital clients of theirs and said, we're interested in doing some connectivity with remote patient monitoring. Who do you recommend? And pretty much universally, they heard about Cloud DX that way. And then they phoned us. So really across Canada, our growth is with and through the medical community. So that's a very important point. We don't really have to spend a lot of sales and marketing resources to grow in Canada. On the US side, we are focused on those resources and deploying those resources to grow the US market. And in the United States, medicine is a little more of a business than it is in Canada. So you're dealing with both physicians who are very much about patient outcomes and CFOs who are about financial outcomes. And so we use a traditional enterprise marketing approach. We have a whole database of prospective clients. We contact those clients, the ones who qualify and meet our criteria. We do demos for them. And then as they get closer and closer to making a decision about creating a remote marketing program, we become either their first pick or we compete with other companies in a competitive tender, which we have a very strong track record of winning.
Great. So Anthony Fitzgerald asks, does Cloud DX have to buy the Octopod?
Let's be clear, we're not buying the Octopod. So that's a great question to sort of unpack that a little more and understand how that relationship actually works. So when a provider, hospital system, for example, chooses to deploy remote patient monitoring, they usually start with one use case in the hospital. It's very often these days a post-surgical monitoring use case because of the large surgical overhang from the pandemic. There's a really strong incentive to get patients out of the hospital as fast as possible to free up that bed space. So we start in one zone. And then what happens organically is other departments of the hospital adopt a technology. So it might be chronic disease management will be next for COPD or CHF. Then palliative care, it turns out, is a very strong use case for RPM and remote technology. Then diabetes care, and then telemental health care. So each of our contracts grows organically. We offer a whole menu of choices when it comes to which devices are required. It all integrates with the same software. So it, in fact, is the hospital or the client who is investing in the technology. Cloud DX makes a margin when we sell those. We don't have to buy them. We're just packaging it, bundling it, and then reselling it to the client.
Thank you for that clarification. Mike Anderson wants to know, is your revenue a one-time fee plus some sort of monthly service fee?
That's a great question too, and thank you for asking that question because it really goes to the heart of how quickly Cloud DX is growing. In the Canadian market and in the US hospital market, very often, in fact almost always, the connected health hardware is purchased upfront. And so that drives hardware revenue, and when you look at our financial statements, you'll see that listed under product revenue. That is buying and reselling hardware that we make anywhere between 20 and 40% margins on. But every single kit that goes out has a subscription that goes with it, very much like a cell phone. And that subscription in Canada is about $39 per month. For US primary care clinics, it's a different model. And the reason is because reimbursement in the US is on a per patient per month basis. So we lease the kits to the doctors on a per patient per month basis, and that number is much higher. It's actually $75 Canadian per patient per month for United States clinics. Overall, that's a higher margin business, but it is amortized, the cost of equipment is amortized into that recurring revenue. So two important points. One is our contracts grow organically. So two types of growth at Cloud DX: growth in contracts and growth of contracts as the contracts add more and more connected health kits and more patients. So you'll see us even recently announcing additional contracts with existing customers. That's that kind of growth. The second thing that's very important to know is that the recurring revenue tends to be very sticky. So all of our contracts to date pretty much have renewed when renewals came around. Once we're fully deployed in a system and the patients are trained and using our technology, the clinicians are trained and are comfortable using the technology, it's very complicated and expensive to replace us with another vendor. That means we have a pretty strong moat around our existing business as it continues to grow.
Perfect. Thank you. Rob Carney wants you to explain the future of the partnership with Teladoc Health as well as Medtronics, and what percentage of sales will these bring?
That's a great question too. So again, many times when investors hear that a small company has formed a partnership with a large company, it's a pretty arm's length arrangement. Usually the small company is buying things from the large company, and that's really, they're calling that a partnership. That is not what we're talking about at Cloud DX. We are fully integrated partners with these two technology giants, the only company in the world that can say that. That means Teladoc technology, including their very, very powerful remote monitoring platform for video called Solo, runs on Cloud DX and is an option for clinicians who are already using Solo or find that Solo is a powerful replacement of something like Zoom, for example. So we're deeply embedded with Teladoc, and we improve the Teladoc value proposition by offering them access to technologies they don't have organically. So that's what's in it for Teladoc. We actually don't even have to share any of our revenue with Teladoc. Each party to that agreement gets to make the full amount of revenue they normally would when either side sells to a client. So we're rolling forward into the market as a full partner of Teladoc. The same is true of Medtronic. When the Oxypod is fully integrated to Cloud DX, it means that everyone who buys the Oxypod program for their hospital will be doing that on Cloud DX. So it's an important differentiator for the partner as well as a massive revenue generator for Cloud DX, obviously. So these integrated partnerships become part of the worldwide picture, and again, having Neil Fraser on our board doesn't hurt. As far as percentage of revenue is concerned, it's a little hard to tell, but really there's three legs to the stool right now. There's the leads and sales coming through Medtronic. There's the leads and sales coming through Teladoc, which is a newer relationship, so that hasn't bulked up as much yet. And then there's all of our organic internal sales and marketing work. I would say in the next couple of years, roughly 30, 30, 30, a third and a third is not out of the question.
Thank you for that answer. So Terrence Beecher says, have you ever considered partnering with someone like Apple? Millions of people own iWatches, and it would seem to make some sense. It's directly connected to the body and monitors many vital currents.
So when it comes to that kind of integration, it's a little bit of a different value proposition. And part of the reason why is because the Apple Watch and its equivalent from Samsung and so on are more consumer devices even to this day than they are considered medical devices. Apple does have a very limited FDA clearance for one of the features on their current Apple Watch. But I, for example, wear an Oura ring. This is a ring that senses my blood oxygen and it counts my sleep and my steps and all kinds of really cool things, but it's not a medical device. So downstream in the future, as more and more people and more patients embrace the concept of the quantified self, an integration to the Apple platform is actually not complicated. The really great thing about Apple is that you can plug into Apple relatively easily. But we don't have demand from our clients for that yet because they're not ready yet to consider Apple Watch or the Samsung Watch or anything like that as a medical device yet. We see ultimately one day that may happen, but today that's not a priority.
Alan Klee wants you to explain your new diabetes offering.
Yeah, thank you, Alan, for that question. That was just announced this morning. And so Cloud DX has offered the option of tracking blood glucose as part of connected health deployments in our technology platform for some time. A lot of our patients in the chronic illness space who have congestive heart failure or have COPD, which is obstructive pulmonary disease, also have type 2 diabetes. However, this is the first program that we've announced where type 2 diabetes is the primary diagnosis, not the comorbidity. And it just means another indication, primary indication, a very large potential user base. Same platform, same devices. In this case, there's both a wireless glucose meter that we've offered for some time now, and the ability for the patient to use their own glucose meter if they already have one, and enter their glucose numbers through the app and through the smartphone or the tablet. But as a primary diagnosis, type 2 diabetes is an incredibly large market. So we're very excited to have this as a launch client and as a reference client to point to as we grow into that direction. And for that reason, it's material. It's one of the reasons we press released the way we did.
Great. Another question from Alan. Your respiratory disease app, what is the app called? It's through your mobile device. And is it only available through your platform? Can you explain a little bit more?
The application is called AcuScreen, ACUSCREEN. It is not yet available in the App Store or the Google Play Store because it's still undergoing a large-scale field testing. It's designed to be used primarily at first by public health officials or public health nurses as a very simple screening tool in developing countries. Because if you think about it, over and over again, developing nations have leapfrogged technology generations, if you will, going from technology from the 70s to modern smartphones, or going from old-fashioned wood-burning technology to modern solar panels and so on. This is an exciting a place to be as far as a company like Cloud DX. We're able to offer on a simple, inexpensive Android phone a state-of-the-art tool that exceeds the WHO standards as a screening tool in the community for tuberculosis. So in the beginning, it will be deployed from that point of view. That's where funding exists for large-scale deployments to detect and deploy against tuberculosis. As it becomes stabilized in the market, and as we see more and more opportunity for large employers, for example, the idea is to one day offer a more consumer-oriented version. The key to that is to make sure that the user, whoever it is capable and is able to connect immediately to healthcare resources if they get a positive diagnosis. It's not enough to know that you have a positive diagnosis. Then what do you do about it? We have to make sure that the support in country on the other side in the public health infrastructure exists. And that's what we're building right now.
Anthony Fitzberg wants to know, what's the largest medical condition you monitor?
Well, the two most prevalent chronic illnesses in the world are congestive heart failure and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Between those two illnesses alone, they account for 75% of all healthcare spending, which is an eye-opening number for anybody who's not in the field. They're by far the most expensive healthcare conditions, exceeding cancer, accidents, the next 3 or 4 on the list combined. Again, 1 in 3 adults currently has one of those conditions or more. And in North America alone, over 10,000 adults turn 65 every single day. So there will never be a limit to the number of clients we can service in the world of chronic illness.
I can see that. Letitia Birch says, your forward-looking contracts that you signed, are they consolidated on your books yet? And if not, when will they be reflected in your filings?
So as we go forward, you'll see again in our financial statements, there's really 3 top line numbers: product revenue, which is the kits mostly that we sell. I say mostly, there's sometimes 1 or 2 other things that go into product revenue, but in general, that's hardware. Then you'll see subscriptions. So that's the recurring revenue component. That component grows every month and every quarter as more and more patients are enrolled in our platform. The third line item is actually services. Services include customizations, creating new features, and so on. This is essentially computer programming work, time and materials work. That fluctuates. It varies from quarter to quarter. We'll have big quarters and we'll have smaller quarters on the services side. The fourth item you need to look for, lower down in the financials, is government funding. Especially in Canada, some of the money that is expended on healthcare goes through projects that are accounted for under IFRS as grant-based project or government funding. But that is still cash coming through Cloud DX that is used to pay for operations. So those numbers are what give you the trailing, if you will, look. A simple way to sort of figure out how things are growing would be to take the last 2 or 3 quarters, especially, take the number of contracts signed, divide it out by that next 1 to 2 contracts revenue, and you'll start to be able to come to that average contract size that you can then project forward with prior to us being able to give the market specific guidance.
Randy Preston wants you to clarify, is it 300% growth and only an 8 million market cap? If so, how do you explain the ultra low market cap?
Well, that's a great question. And the question exists for every company in the healthcare IT space, even large companies, and especially in the Canadian healthcare IT space. When the pandemic started to wind down towards the beginning of 2020, end of 2021, beginning of 2022, virtually every healthcare IT company saw a dramatic reduction in market cap. And what you will see when you look at the Canadian or the Cloud DX Canadian stock chart is you'll see that our share price has established a very firm floor. That floor is anywhere from 16 to 19 Canadian cents, which is not really indicative of our overall value, because you'll see that even from early 2022 till now, that number really hasn't changed, even though we signed 233% more contracts. We saw over 300%, or just under 300% increase in revenue in Q3, and so on. The market is just not yet caught up to the news. As buyers begin to return to the market, that may change.
Right. Alok Upadhyaya asks that Cloud DX appears to have great momentum in Canada. So how's it going in the US?
It's going very, very well. The United States sales cycles are longer than Canadian sales cycles. And we really began in earnest marketing to US clients with our marketing partners like Definitive Healthcare in Q3 of last year. Since that time, we've signed announced four large contracts. And that marketing and contract signing machine is now obviously rolling forward. So we're anticipating that that kind of growth to occur also in the United States. And, again, contracts announced so far in 2023 have been Canadian contracts. I think we can, without bending any rules, predict that as the next 2 to 3 quarters roll forward, you'll see more and more US contracts because we really have invested in salespeople and marketing infrastructure in the United States.
Darren Swick asks, as far as future generated revenue, what are the company's plans to keep accounts payable in check, reinvest R&D, and investors' share?
The good news on accounts payable is that throughout having gone public in 2021, we used those funds raised during our public offering to structure the company for growth, especially for the US market. So we increased our headcount, we nearly doubled it. That's since come down a little bit with natural attrition, but our expenses now are essentially flat. At the same time, we made large investments on the software side and the infrastructure side, especially in privacy and security, but also in just the sheer efficiency of our tech stack, to the point where we can now monitor and manage hundreds of thousands of patients simultaneously. So we're now poised to allow that growth to happen without any major increase in operating expenses. We also saw a large number of one-time expenses as you go through the going public process. It's not inexpensive. Those one-time expenses are now behind us. And so our overall burn rate has come down. As I mentioned in the financial statements in Q3, you'll see it's down by 21%. And that double-digit drop in net loss is expected to continue. So that's the path we're on right now from the point of view of stability and expenses aligned with continued growth on the revenue side.
Wonderful. We have more questions for you, Robert. We've gone over time. We will send these questions to you so you can answer on your own. But do you have any closing remarks for our viewers?
Only that point about market cap is a very important point. And I think that without, again, making promises that are outside of the rules, I think that when you think about the value proposition of remote monitoring and you think about companies that are well poised to take advantage of that, I want everyone to just remember the partnerships we have, the published peer-reviewed research that holds us head and shoulders above even our largest competition, and the extremely high patient satisfaction and provider satisfaction numbers, which Cloud DX is delivering, which also generates a lot of new referral business. And thanks everyone for your questions. I really appreciate they're great questions. And we will get to all the questions that you send in. We'll make sure we get those answered later on today.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us, and come back again with some updates.
I appreciate it.
All right, everyone, we're going to, take a quick break, but we'll be back at 12:35 Eastern. We'll see you soon.